It is now 2 o'clock exactly in Brussels, but let's give a few more minutes. I think there will be still people dropping in. Then we can start. Maybe I can start with housekeeping announcements first. So this webinar will be recorded, which is for you to know that you are attending a webinar that will be recorded. So that will be first thing for you to know. But also the second thing is that this will be made available for many other colleagues that are not able to join exactly at this moment of time. So this will be available for later as well. And due to the high number of people who registered for this seminar, we will keep every participant muted. So only those presenting will be having their microphone and cameras active. But there's the function for questions and answers. So please don't hesitate to use that and write your questions whilst we are hearing the presentations. And the more concise and clear your question is, the more chances you have to actually have your question selected for the question and answer session that we will have in the end after the presentations. So a few words about this project. First of all, my name is Jori Ringman. I'm Director General of SEPI, and I was actually SEPI Sustainability Director at the time when this project started a few years ago. And already back then it was clear that this is a project that is highly needed and was highly appreciated already. What it is that the pulp and paper manufacturers and on the other side, the chemical suppliers are working together in this project to establish a standard for communicating that fosters a reliable exchange of chemical information in the value chain in both directions. This is a strategic shift happening from the legacy emails and everybody's own way of communicating and asking questions and then using whatever tools they had to more secure information, to more efficiency, productivity, and speed. And most of all, at least personally, I think this is a great way of avoiding misunderstandings of what the question was and misunderstanding of what the answer was. So that, at least I believe, is one of the key achievements of this project, that those can be eliminated and avoided. And this will be, in my opinion, even more important in the future. It was important in the past, but it will be even more important in the future when we actually are going to see very soon a big regulatory change in the area of chemicals. So things are happening faster, changes are happening faster, and they need to be implemented and understood. So if this tool was ever important, it's even more important now and in the future than it was. The tool has actually two parts. One is harmonized questionnaire that anybody can use free of charge, and we actually do actively recommend that people use that instead of their own ways of asking questions. The other part is then to make that more effective and efficient and time-saving for people is to have an IT tool to run that operation. And we will explain both parts in this seminar. So now I'm happy to introduce the first part, which is done by two colleagues, one from the pulp and paper industry and the other one from the chemical industry. So we have two strong ladies. First, Kaisa Herranen, who's Senior Manager for Product Stewardship at UPM. And she has prepared this presentation with Heather Harvey, who's Data and Process Manager at Omia. And I understood that mostly the speaking is done by Kaisa, but be aware that it's a collaboration with Heather and Kaisa together to prepare this presentation. This would take some 10 to 15 minutes, and then we move to the second presentation. And as I said, there will be question and answer session after those two. So the floor is yours, Kaisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Jori. I will start sharing my screen. Yeah, I hope you can see it already. Just a second.
Yes, we can.
do.
Yes, perfect. So I'm going to tell you about the pulp and paper value chain information system and the work we have done to build solutions for challenges I guess we all more or less face when exchanging chemicals information in between the paper and board manufacturers and our chemical suppliers. So first, here's our agenda for today. I'm going to tell you some words about the history of the PP-VIS, so pulp and paper value chain information system. It's a long word, working group, and about our mission. Then some challenges, I guess, are more or less familiar to all of you. And then about the solutions we have had so far. That would be the harmonized questionnaire. Then some words about the future opportunities and the roadmap, and then I will give over to Scott, and he will explain more about the future opportunities and of course about the StacksData tool that has been developed in this cooperation. So our mission, our working group mission, it is to ensure that we as paper or board manufacturers and our chemical suppliers, so that we speak the same language and we understand each other. And our second mission, which is as important as the first one, that is to make compliance work easier. First, we need to have access to data, but data alone is not enough, like you all very well know. We need to have the functionalities to develop knowledge from data. Some words about the history of the PP-VIS working group. We've been working quite a few years already. I think the very first meetings we had was in 2016. And we are cooperating under the umbrella of CEPI and EPCG, that is European Paper Chemicals Group. At the moment, in 2022, we have 8 paper manufacturing companies and 11 chemical suppliers participating in the working group meetings. Geographically, we are all from Europe, except one company from Australia. For more information about our project and about the StacksData tool and about the harmonized questionnaire and all the contact information you can find from CEPI or EPCG websites. And here are the links in the presentation material. Then I move on to challenges. Like you all know, we have had for many years. Of course, there's a regulation in place that when our suppliers need to deliver a safety data sheet. Then there are technical data sheets for sure, and have been for years and years. But in addition to that, and especially in this project, we are concentrating on chemical information that would come in addition to this safety data sheet and the technical data sheets. So we are concentrating on compliance declarations, certifications, and then chemical composition. And when mentioning the chemical composition, we immediately enter into discussion about the granularity, and then of course about the confidentiality. But we've been able, in this cooperation, we don't always agree 100%, that would be supernatural, about in between chemical suppliers and paper manufacturers, but we've been able to solve the issues and find a way forward. and find ways, for example, when and how information about the chemical composition and even the concentration information, when it should be declared and what is needed. So I think I really appreciate this work that we've been doing together in between the paper companies and the chemical suppliers, and of course StacksData, our IT supplier. Yes, there's something that Jori already briefly mentioned. Well, we need chemicals information. Yeah, there's an increasing need for information on chemicals that is coming from our customers, but it's also coming from the authorities and regulators. Not to forget, for example, these new developments, so revision of EU food contact material regulation, and especially this Pillar D, that would be improving the quality and accessibility of supply chain information. Please keep in mind that, of course, in this industry initiative, we are not developing directly a tool for this purpose. We don't even know what would be the actual result. What is it that the EU Commission is looking for here? But we are moving to that direction. We are developing a digitalized information exchange tool. And yes, we must also keep in mind the other important regulation, and that would be the eco-design for sustainable products, eco-design for sustainable products regulation. Just to give you a couple of examples, why is it that we think that this is the right direction where we are going, and for what we need more information about the chemicals. So, getting back to our project. So the step 1 started already quite a few years ago. It was to agree on what is it that we need and we want to exchange. For that purpose, we developed the harmonized questionnaire that was launched. I think the first version was launched somewhere late 2018 and early 2019. And that is an Excel questionnaire. It's available and free to use for all in our value chain. So a paperboard value chain. It's available for downloading on SEPI and EPCT websites. When developing the questionnaire, we bring our knowledge from both sides of the table, so from chemical suppliers, from the paper company side, and we have had lengthy discussions to agree about the content. But one must always keep in mind that this will never ever be like 100% solution, and that's not even our aim. We do understand that there will always be questions that we cannot cover in the harmonized questionnaire, but we've done our utmost to come into to develop this common understanding and to write the harmonized questionnaire. It's been already updated a couple of times. The current version 2.0.1 that is at the moment today downloadable from the SEPI and EPCC websites. But we are also expecting the next version to be published before the end of 2022. And the working group plans to continue updating the harmonized questionnaire on a regular basis. Yep. And then when we have the Excel files, we can end up into this kind of a situation when we have the data, yes, but to really meet our second mission, that was to make compliance work easier, we do need to have an advanced IT tool to support, to be able to make the information on data. And the second step, that is to develop knowledge from data. And I want to give you some, maybe most of you have already know the harmonized questionnaire, but well, if there's someone who doesn't know about the content, here are some examples about the questions we have in the harmonized questionnaire and for which kind of information needs you can have and receive answers using our questionnaire. So for example, are all chemicals in a formula, are they approved for food contact paper production? Or are all chemicals in the formula approved by EU Ecolabel? What products in my manufacturing process contain chemical X? Is there a total amount of substance X in my product possibly exceeding a certain regulatory limit value? Which of our chemicals or chemicals in a formula can be used for a halal or kosher certified grade? Or if there is palm oil or animal-derived substances in my formula. So when you have the harmonized questionnaire and the StacksData IT tool in use, basically all the steps you would need to take would be to, of course, have your formula on hand, then request, collect, and review the harmonized questionnaires from all contributing suppliers. And when you have everything in place inside the StacksData tool, you press the reporting button and the system will create you a summary report. It's in real, of course, it's much more complicated than my three-step presentation here. But basically, this is it. This is how you create and find answers to these most typical compliance questions that we face from our customers and from the authorities and regulators. And now I will turn over to Scott. Scott, please, it's your turn to explain how StacksData can help us in the compliance work.
Thank you, Kaisa. And I'm just going to get situated over here and share my screen. Okay. How's that?
It's a little box on top, but otherwise it's fine.
Oh, okay, you see it.
Teams is on top of it, Scott. So you need to a black Teams window on top. There you go.
Now it's perfect. Yeah,
that went better than I thought it would go. So that was the part of the presentation I was most concerned about. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I understand how busy everyone is, and it really is it's a great honor to be part of this, and to have you take some time out of your day is really something we appreciate a lot. So thanks. So as Kaisa said, I'm going to be talking more about the IT side of this project. So we're looking at supply chain compliance data collection and management as seen through the lens of this really exciting project that we've been working on with Heather and Kaisa and the rest of the PP-VIS team. So okay. So just a quick background on myself. I've been in this field for a very long time, longer than I wish to admit, actually. And I have a PhD in environmental engineering from Columbia University in New York City. And that experience very much led me down the path to supply chain data collection and sustainability that I've been on for about 15 years now. I did my graduate work I used the tools of LCA to help municipalities quantify the environmental impact of solid waste management decisions that they made. And that might not sound exactly like what we're discussing today, but it's remarkably similar. You still have these silos of data that you need to somehow connect, even though they're living in different parts of the world and they're not uniform. So all this work that I did in my graduate work led to similar work with a bunch of organizations that you may have heard of. So I've worked on the sort of standard setting side with WRI, who does the greenhouse gas protocol. and as well as the Carbon Trust, which did the supply chain carbon product carbon footprint called the PAS 2050. And then I've worked with companies such as Pepsi and the New York City Department of Sanitation, all doing a similar kind of work to this. And just a little personal note, I'm the father of 5-year-old twins. And we live in Baltimore, which maybe some of you have been to before, but I'm usually surprised if the answer to that question is yes. Okay, so with that out of the way, I just want to give a brief look at what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction and background to just get us on the same page. And then I'm going to pretty quickly go into the sort of philosophy behind our creation of Stacks. And then we're going to go into a demo, which is, I'm sure, what's most interesting to all of you on the call. And finally, like everyone's been saying, we're going to have some time at the end for Q&A. So I like to start out these kinds of talks by pointing out that every product has a story, and we're talking about paper today. So I did some little extra research just out of intellectual curiosity to see about the history of paper, and it looks something like this. So when paper was invented, which was in China, as far as I understand, a very long time ago, it was essentially done by taking a pile of hemp rags and mashing it up with water, and then forming it into a sheet and putting it out to dry in the sun. And then you have paper that you can use for very basic activities. Obviously, there's not too much you can do with something like this, but it was our start towards a path of literacy for the human race, I guess. And if you try and think of this as a supply chain conversation, it's really easy to keep track of this even in your head. Like you know that there are only 2 ingredients essentially, and you know where they're coming from, you know what they're made out of, you know how much of it you use. None of this is going to require too much in the way of an IT tool, let's say. It would have been overkill at this point. But if you fast forward in history to where we are now, the equivalent process diagram would look something like this. And this is a SEPI diagram. I'm sure you've all seen this one or similar ones like it. It obviously becomes a much different story to be dealing with data needs from this complex a system versus this. That I think is intuitively and viscerally clear. So the problem is we haven't really advanced too much past this, which is a ledger, to where we need to be. So when you're dealing with a lack of complexity like this, you can use something like a ledger to keep track of whatever information you need to in terms of flows in and out. But when you're looking at a system that's complex like this, it's not going to work, obviously. So the funny thing is we're not really too far past that in this kind of work. We are using the modern equivalent of a ledger, which is basically an Excel questionnaire, which we email back and forth and change versions of and have a hard time keeping track of, and all the attendant problems that I'm sure all of you are familiar with for this kind of work. And just as an illustration of how tough this is, we did an analysis a couple of years ago, and we found that for every 1,000 supply chain requests, there were something like 6,000 emails exchanged, almost 600 people involved, and 350 companies involved. So it's a really big mess essentially, and it's hard to keep track of with something like a ledger or an Excel spreadsheet. So I think it's probably pretty clear why the tools that we're using now don't deliver the performance and results that we're looking for. But to pick out a few of the key reasons, one thing is communications are extremely difficult. It's first of all really hard to find the people with the information you need, and once you find them, it's hard to find ways to exchange the data back and forth. And secondly, also as important when you're following up on this, even when you do find the right people, and even when you do trade data back and forth, it's very hard to keep track of your interactions. I mean, if you're sending email attachments, you're not going to know anything about what the version that you're working on is compared to the previous versions, who might have answered the questions. It's all just a kind of a black box mystery. And the final piece is the work, when you're doing it with a ledger type tool, is repetitive, it's time consuming, and it's pretty inefficient. We do really surprisingly well with Excel, given all these challenges, but we could be doing much better. And This brings up a question of why this matters in the first place. And we see there are 3 key drivers of compliance management that make this work so vital right now. The first one is that companies need a better handle on their compliance data and their means of getting it. And we've discussed the reasons why. Secondly, suppliers need to prove that their products comply with whatever their customers are asking for. And customers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but customers are asking a lot more questions now than in the past. So this is not a small matter. And finally, we've mentioned this several times today, there's the regulatory needs that are increasing dramatically across the globe. So these are all compelling reasons, I think, to look really closely at what we're doing and see if we can find a better way. And I'm not going to read through this whole slide. I put this on because I knew that you were going to be getting the slides after this presentation. But I just wanted to have this up here to give you a sense of what we see as the holistic needs. You can think of these more as I'm forgetting the word, but it's challenges and the sort of large scale needs that you have. And then we have the operational solutions that solve those needs. So I have listed 5 here, but the ones I want you to think about most closely for a second are the ability to collaborate across the supply chain, the ability for anyone across the globe to be able to use this tool easily, and the effortless security of a platform. This is really essential now as well. So if we look really closely for a second at security, we know this is important to people. So we want to address this, both in the work and in the presentation today. We look at security with 2 main views in mind. We have user-based actions that are potential security risks, and then we have infrastructure, which is beyond the control or the purview of any individual users, but obviously at least as important as the first. So we address user error with lots of layers of redundancy, good redundancy. We're going to be talking about bad redundancy later. So things like permissions, specific roles for individuals, privacy rules associated with data that you collect or make available, silos that these are stored in and how they're effectively separated from each other. And then, of course, managed access to make sure that only the people that you want to be in the system are able to get in. And once they're in, you only want them to be able to interact with those parts of the tool that are relevant to them. And infrastructure is all the things that you hear about security when you talk about apps like this. So this is just some of the examples of things that we do to address infrastructure. We are hosted by Amazon Web Services. We are able to choose locations in Europe for that because that was important for this project when it started. And the rest of the list here is terminology that you may or may not have seen before. But the main message here is that we are as up to date as we possibly can be, and we're constantly evaluating how we can do this better. Okay, there we go. All right, so with those issues out of the way, I'm going to talk for a minute about what Stacks is so that you have a sense of it before we go into the actual demo. And it's three main things, basically. It's a simple and intuitive data collection and management tool. This middle one is really interesting. It's a storehouse and distribution center for data and communications. So it's not enough to just collect the data, as Kaiser was pointing out earlier. You need to be able to do things with it, and you need to be able to store it safely and to retrieve it easily when you need it again later. So we take this piece of our role very seriously. It's where a lot of the meat of the work gets done. And finally, it's a highly flexible audit and reporting platform, and you'll see how that works together in a second. So I just want to point out that we've been doing this for about 10 years, and from the very beginning, it's been very important to me that this not just be a tool that checks off all the boxes, that lets you check off your compliance needs and you send an email and it's over. We want this to be a product that really delights people. It makes a big difference when you're doing work that can be difficult and challenging and is not often not the thing you'd rather be doing in your day. We want to sort of change that. And we're doing that in 2 ways. We're doing it through the software, which you'll see in a second, but we also we take customer service extremely seriously. We're a very small company. We work very closely with our clients. This work with PP-VIS has been a really good example. There are something like 20 contributing companies to this project, and we've all worked really closely for almost 2 years now. And the customer service piece couldn't be more important than we feel it is. Okay, so we're ready basically to see how it works, and then I'll go into the actual tool itself. So the process works like this. We're going to take it from the point of view of a paper manufacturer for obvious reasons. So a paper manufacturer would come into the system and request access to a product sheet. So a product sheet is basically a living document that contains the evolving record of the product that you're looking at. So the idea is every sheet is for one product, or one product for every sheet. And instead of having all these disparate Excel questionnaires and other formats coming in at you, you just have this one sheet that you update over time, you take away, you add to. You'll see how it works, I think, as we go through the demo. So after the request is sent to the supplier and the supplier accepts the request, the supplier has to go through the work of either updating an older sheet or filling out the new one. And at this point, you have the first real chance at collaboration on the platform. And there's external collaboration, which is obviously necessary to get data from your stakeholders, but there's also internal collaboration, which is required often, and it's not really addressed by a lot of tools. You're obviously going to need different colleagues to help with different things, and we've set up the system so that's really a free-flowing conversation in all directions, including the internal direction. From there, the supplier would submit their completed sheet, and the manufacturer would review the response. And at this point, they will approve or reject the response. And if they reject it, it essentially goes, oh, wrong direction. It essentially goes back to early in the process, where you'll have the rejected individual questions that you have to revise. And then it goes through the review process again, and we'll see very clearly how that works in the demo in a second. And then once it's accepted, this particular flow is closed. But like I said, it's a living document, so you're going to have many iterations of the same sheet over time. And from there, once it's accepted and you're done, you have a lot of further steps that you can take. So obviously, you can share it with other companies and organizations. You can integrate it with your internal systems. You can generate reports, which Kaisa mentioned, and we'll show you as well. And there's also, crucially, the ability to add in additional questions and data. And I'm going to show you how that works as well. It's the most fun part of the platform, I think. And I just want to point out that that it is in the beginning, you don't save that much time by answering the requests for information in the system, because you have to build up the base of data in the system. So, but when you get past this, when you do the first round of data entry and it gets approved, all this work in the green box basically goes away forever for that product. And at that point, all you do is iterate on it and make changes granularly as you go on. So this is a key point to keep in mind, and I'll show you again how that works in the system in a second. All right, so one last thing I wanted to show you before we move into the demo. Whoops, okay. So what I tried to do here is superimpose the steps that you would have to take using an Excel questionnaire for this workflow. So I'm not going to read you all these bullet points. I'm sure they're familiar to you. I trust that I've gotten it mostly right. All these are pretty easy to understand activities that you have to do, but they take a lot of time. And this is essentially what you're cutting out by using a system like this. So we basically see our job is to take data management off of your plate and to provide software and people that work together to help your data work for you. That is our mission in a nutshell. And with that, I'm going to switch over to the demo. I think while I'm getting this set up, I might have 30 seconds for any urgent questions. So I don't know how we could handle that, but in the meantime, I will switch over to, let's see.
So the participants don't have the access to their microphones, but you can write your questions in the questions and answers or in the chat, whatever you prefer, and then we'll have the questions in the end.
Okay, great. So I'm just about ready. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Share. Okay. I want to show just. So can everyone see that?
We can see two panels. We can see the left-hand side, we see the StacksData tool, and the right-hand side, we see what looks like a PDF of the questions.
Okay. Is it big enough?
It's okay.
Okay. All right. So let me just do that. And okay. So this is the
now we can only see half. You can see a full screen, but half of it is covered with the StacksData and the other half is black.
Okay.
So if you've got space, I would, yeah, thank you.
That's good.
Make it a little bit bigger. Sorry to.
It's okay. It's important. So you need this a little bit bigger.
If you could, yeah, please.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do here is go through the flow as I showed you in the diagram a few slides ago. So we're just basically going to go through a request and response sequence. Click on that. So what you're seeing here is what we call the sheet index, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of all the sheets that you are dealing with in your personal account. Rather than sort of explain what each button is, I'm just going to go through the process so you can see basically how it works, and then we can circle back around and you can ask me more specific questions about the process. So if we click sheet request, this is going to take us to a choice between, we can see the history of what we've done before, or we can request a new sheet. I'm going to choose the request a new sheet, and what you'll see now is this dialog box pops up, and you want to select the supplier that you're going to send the request to. So I'm going to pick StacksData supplier, and what the system then does is it searches for any existing sheets that you have access to from this supplier. So that's the first pass at trying to make sure that we don't have redundant questions being asked. So when this finishes spinning, I'll be able to click the down arrow and just check by eyeball whether this sheet exists or not, and it doesn't. So I'm going to create a new sheet by checking this box, and I'm going to name this product yellow, which doesn't mean anything necessarily, but we'll all be able to follow this product in its life cycle. And the next step is to choose tags, and I'm going to have to divert to the side again just for a second. I'm going to pull this in here, and basically what we have in this system is you have every question that has ever been asked about this product in the system, and then the ability to add more questions to address newer ones. So if you look at this eco-label section, these are all the questions for eco-labels that are available to be asked in the system. And you can see up here that we have little tags against each question. And this is a requirement. So every question has to have at least one tag. And when you tag a question with the relevant tag, so in this case, if you look over here, SEPI is one of the tags. This means that when you send new requests, you'll add the tag that contains the questions that you want to ask. So I hope that's clear. I'm going to go back to putting the data in, and I think it'll become clearer if it's not. So what I'm going to do is choose the SEPI tag, and I made this for obvious reasons, but let me click request sheet. So that is basically the process of requesting a sheet. So it's really that fast. And what I'm going to do now is just close out here, and we're going to switch over to the supplier side. Get rid of that. And maybe make this a little bigger. Actually, I guess I can't. So hopefully you can see this. So if we go back to the sheet index for the supplier, you'll see here that there's a sheet request link, and it has a little red dot next to it, which indicates that there's a new request for you, or at least one. So if we click in there, here's the product yellow that we just requested. It's listed right here. It says who requested it. It has the next step hyperlinked. So this is not just a static table. This table changes based on what you have to do at any given moment. So if we click create the sheet, this is going to give us as the supplier the opportunity to change the name, to add or remove tags. And I'm going to make this a demo just to make it easier for me to keep track. And then once you have those pieces of information in there, you click create sheet. And this brings up the first level of security that is really key. And I mentioned it in the slides. We have different notifications that you can receive. And when we create a new sheet, they're none present. So you have to, as the point person for your company, you'd have to decide which users get to make these decisions and then apply the right rules against each one. So the StacksData supplier is actually me. So I'm going to give myself permission to receive notifications on status changes, on flagged answers, on comments, and on everything else. So if I click apply here, it's saved, and we now know that this person in this company has the ability to do all this stuff. And now when we come back to the index, you can see that we're still in the supplier view. And let me scroll up to the top so that that's clear. So it says supplier over here, if you can see where I'm pointing. And here you're seeing the product that we just created the sheet for. So we're going to click in where it says not shared yet, and this takes us to the action center, which I just wanted to show you briefly. This is basically an activity feed with actions that you can take on individual sheets. So we're going to come back to this in a second. I just wanted to show you so you know it's there. But what we really want to do here is fill out this sheet as a supplier. So we're going to click here to open it, and you're immediately taken into the sheet. And here you can see we have 3 questions on this sheet. So that means that I put the CEPI tag on 3 individual questions. And again, wherever you see red dots, that means that there's something to be done there. So if we click here, this wants us to put our user profile in. I'm just going to do that. And then we're going to go into actually answering the questions. So we have a first red dot here. If we click in here, it's just at this point a typical survey, essentially. It has the same functionality, the same types of questions. So I'm going to choose the answers that give me the least amount of work to do after this, because it's just a demo. And I want to take you into an hour of looking at me filling in sheets. So I'm just going to click not applicable for that. And we have, I'll say not assessed for this. So if you scroll up here, you can see that there are no red dots left. There's nothing next to the contact profile, so we can close that up. The eco-labels questions have been answered, and the food contact compliance question has been answered. So at this point, all you have to do is submit it back to the manufacturer to share. So if you look down here, there's a little control strip, as we call it, and this has, again, contextual commands and actions that you can take. So the system knows that we've answered all the questions now, so it's inviting us to click here and submit and share it. So I'm going to do that. And at this point, you're going to be presented with an option of which data source to take it from. And this, I'm not going to get into this right now. It's very easy, but it can seem complicated. So I'm just going to click the most recent unsubmitted changes. Those are the changes that I just made as the respondent. And then I'm going to confirm that that's my choice. And the system will tell you once again which tags you're including in this response. And it will then give you a list of the companies that are eligible to have this sheet sent to them. So we made this request as StacksData manufacturer. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click send and notify. And this is telling us that it's going to take a minute, but that it's creating the sheet. And here you can see that the status has now changed to green. It means that there's really nothing left for us as the supplier to do at this point. So we can switch back over safely now to the manufacturer view. And we're just going to wear a different hat now. So we're once again the paper manufacturer. And you can see that the status over here for the product that we created has changed to ready for review. So the review process is extremely easy. Again, it's one of these situations where in the beginning, it will take a little bit more, well, a lot more time than for subsequent requests, because all the information will be in the system at that point. But I'm going to click View Answers. And you'll see here, it's going to populate the sheet with the sections that we had questions in. So I'm going to just open up both of these so you can see them. And if you look next to each question, you can see that there's this little flag. And this is how you go through the review. So basically what we want to do is minimize the work required as much as possible. So we don't want you to have to take an action for every single question, because chances are like 80% or more of them are going to be perfectly fine. So what we want to do is highlight those issues and questions that need to be addressed. So let's say we aren't satisfied with this response, not applicable. In that case, we click this little flag here, and it will bring up a dialog box that requests you put a reason for your flagging it, and you can say this has to be studied. I don't know. I'm just going to put in anything for now. And then we click Flag Answer, and the flag turns red, and you're done with reviewing that question. So you just move on to the next one, and you just do this throughout the sheet until there are no outstanding questions left. So I'm going to put this flag on one more answer. I'm going to say, please update. And then I'm going to click Flag Answer. And you'll see this turns red. And if we look down here at the control strip, this now gives us an opportunity before we submit it to look and see which questions we flagged. So this shows you the question, what their answer was, and what your note to them was. So this is really useful just to give you a sense of place in the process. So now we're done. We filled everything out. There's nothing left to do. So I'm going to click Finish Review. And at this point, these are configurable. So we have it right now. So there are two choices basically. If you want to approve the sheet, you click Approve. If you want to reject it because there's more work to be done, you click Reject. So we're going to do Reject because we have a couple of flagged questions. And there's you have to type a comment when you're rejecting it. So I'm just going to type please see flags, and we're going to click Submit and Notify. And you can see here that when we go back to the sheet index, the status will have changed once again. So it might take a second for it to come up. There we go. So you can see that the status has changed to rejected, and you at this point are now waiting for the supplier to respond to that. So for one last time, I'm going to switch over to the supplier view again. And here you can see that this card, which represents the product that we're dealing with, now says open items. So you have open items here. So if you click in that, this is why I wanted to show you the action center earlier. You can see now that the first action is that the manufacturer changed the sheet status to rejected. So we see that that's been done and we're okay with that. So we can click done here and we're going to complete that step. The next step is the manufacturer flagged an answer. So in this case, we see there are two answers flagged. So instead of having to dig through an entire spreadsheet or even a sheet on this system, what this does is take you to a special view of just the questions that you have to deal with for this project. So you can see here, the first flagged answer is here. So if I click that, it takes me to the special view, which again is just this one single question. And it tells you all the information you need to know about it. And what you do is, if you're going to change your answer, you would do that here. So I'm going to click Not Recommended. And then once you've changed your answer, you can click Mark as Completed, and it'll turn green. And that question is done. And if there's any additional work for you to do, you'll see a link up here that says Next Flagged Answer. So if I click that, it'll go to the second question that I flagged, and you can see it's red again. And I'm going to change it to the product has not been assessed. And I'm going to mark that as completed. And this tells you that you're done. Basically, you have no pending flagged answers, and you just need to resubmit it at this point. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click Finish and Share. And you'll see that we will head back to the sheet index with, again, this dialog box asking us which data we want to use. And it's the most recent unsubmitted changes again. And I can explain that afterwards if anybody's confused about what that means. Okay, then I'm going to confirm what I just put in there. And you can see, again, we only have SEPI tags at this point. So we just have to wait for the list of companies to populate, which it just did. And I'm going to click Send and Notify. And I'm going to click OK. And at this point, again, as the supplier, your work is finished. You have no open items. So we're going to switch back one more time to the manufacturer view. And you can see here that it says ready for review. So what we're going to do now, again, I want you to sort of pay attention here because this is really key to the system. Again, we don't have to open the sheet itself to do this. We can be taken just to the answer that has work for us to do. So if we click on the sheet, you can see here that it's highlighting a link that says View Changed Answers. So if we click that, it'll take us again to the special view, but this is for the paper manufacturer to review it. And you can see here it shows the answer that's been changed to. And if you agree with that change as the manufacturer, you just check this box and it says marked as reviewed, and you're essentially accepting this answer. And if we look up here, you can see that there's two in this case that we flagged, if you remember. So if we switch to the next one, I'm going to say that I agree with this not recommended answer. So I click here, and the system then knows that you're done. You don't have to look at anything else in this sheet. You've addressed every issue that has been brought to your attention that involved you. So you could go back to all the answers if you want, but what we're probably going to want to do here is finish the sheet review, and we're going to approve it this time because they made the changes that we asked for. So if we submit and notify, you'll see that the status changed here. If I click here, you'll see it a little better. And once it populates again, you'll see that status change. So that is the basic flow. There are a million things I want to show you. I know reporting is foremost on a lot of people's minds, but I do want to stop here for a second and, given the time constraints, just see where we're at and see if there's anything more or less useful that I could be doing with the time remaining.
Scott, this is Heather. Could you just show the filtering slightly? Because what you see here is a big list of sheets, but without going to the report number, but if you go to the filtering, it will help you focus the list.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so the filtering I really should have shown that. You're right. It's probably the best part. So here you have, as Heather just pointed out, a whole list of sheets that may or may not have anything to do with each other. But what you want to be able to do in a system like this is get very specific information that addresses very specific problems or questions that you have. So let's say I'm going to choose questions and answers. I think that's the best way to sort of show this. So what I'm basically doing now is telling the system that I want to filter out certain types of questions and answers. So that's the first step here. I chose that. And then it's going to ask for a section. So we've been dealing with food contact. Let's do eco labels. I think that'll be better. So this is, you're now filtering questions and answers to questions in section eco labels. And then from there we have subsections. So if we want to choose eco labels, Nordic, I think this was. Yeah, let's do that. So from there, so we're now in the subsection, and now the system is asking us which questions do we want to ask to address specifically. So if I choose paper products, it's now going to so this is a question. Paper products in the chemical module. These are the available answers. So let's say I think this is one of the answers I chose. There we go. So it searched through the system and it found just one sheet that has this particular answer, the product has not been assessed to the paper product's chemical module question. And I hope that that's clear to see why that's really powerful. Because if we had more data in this view, let's say we wanted to know everyone who had a certain CAS number in one of their products, you could choose the CAS number filter option, and it would just provide you with a list of any products that have that CAS number in it. So that's the point of this system of filtering. So it's basically a two-step thing. You put in your parameters, and then you can do things with the data when you have picked the parameter. So in this example, we could click export results. I don't know why it's doing it twice. I probably clicked twice. And then if we open this, you'll see that it's going to be in a really basic spreadsheet for this, because we only have one result, this filter, but this gives you all of the data that you could possibly need for that sheet related to this query that you did.
Thanks, Scott. That's what I wanted to go, because it's for me, and getting the individual sheets in, that's one half, but getting information out of the information you've subsequently collected and making that easier for you is the second half. So thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah. So we very deliberately designed this to so you have 100% access to your data. This is not a black box. You can very easily click a few buttons and get every single piece of data out of the system in a CSV or other format. The data is always yours as long as you're a customer, basically.
Thank you very much, Scott. Very good demonstration. Even I had an illusion for a moment that I understood what this tool does, and I'm not an expert, so you did a very good job.
Thanks.
I don't see any questions in the chat, but whilst we wait for that, I have a question to Kaisa and Heather. So who can join this system, and then who should join?
Well, anyone that, if you want to use the harmonized questionnaire, that's available to anyone. And if you want to use the tool, Scott will show you a free trial slide, which he has prepared, that anyone can have a trial version of this and play around in the tool to see if it would be helpful. But for me, it's anyone who they think that if this is what they do in their daily life, this would be a useful tool. It's limited to the harmonized questionnaire, which under the careful guidance of Kaisa and her colleagues, they'll agree and improve and develop as time goes on. Kaisa, anything else?
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add. That's it. Free for use for everyone in the value chain. And then please do contact StacksData if you wish also to take the IT tool in use.
Yeah, so I hope you can see my screen. Doug, this is your moment in the sun. This is my colleague, Doug. And you can reach out to him. We want to get as many of you as possible, at least some exposure to the tool. So we're offering a free 10-day trial, which we'll be deeply involved in. So I think it'll probably be worth your time. And we're also offering $500 off a yearly subscription for SEPI members. So hopefully that's helpful as you consider what you need to do.
Great. We always have the promotions, but what would be then the remaining part to pay? So how much is the fee?
Yeah, so it's something that I can't pinpoint right now. We're talking about the next pricing structure, so we'll have an answer for that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, and we are almost.
But it's affordable.
Time, but that's what I understood. It's very much affordable, so you shouldn't be too much scared about this.
No.
At all. There's a question from our colleagues in FEFCO saying that anyone can use it does not mean paper producers or also paper converters. So at this stage, it's only limited to the paper and board manufacturers and the chemical suppliers for them. But if this becomes a huge success, I could imagine that this could be expanded then to the next steps in the value chain. Then there's a question from Luke Land. Why not to include conformance to ISO standards, ISO 14,000 series, for instance, but several other under development? Who could answer this? Is it Kaisa or Heather?
Yes, it's a Kaisa question.
Kaisa, you're a lucky one.
Yes. Sorry, I'm struggling to understand the question. ISO standards. Yeah, why not? I think this is a very good development idea. We are always open for developments. At the moment, we don't have any questions about the ISO standards. You are perfectly right. But yes, like I said, we are going to actually, for your information, we are going to have on 26th of October the next PP-VIS working group steering meeting. And yeah, and there we will also agree about the future of the coming meetings for the 2023. And always we do collect ideas to develop, and inside the steering group we take the decision when and what new questions will be added to the questionnaire and implemented also in the StacksData tool. So thank you for your idea, Luke. We will keep this in mind and consider.
Okay, we are now 1 minute over the borrowed time, so I don't see any other questions, and both Casimira and Luke are saying thanks for the answer. So I just then use the opportunity to thank all of you. So Scott and Kaisa and Heather, thank you very much for very good presentations, and I hope this was interesting enough for all the participants so that we get many more users for this system, because I think there's been a wonderful development. So the system has really taken huge leaps forward, and this is now at a much more advanced level than it was a few years ago when we started. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get many contacts for starting to use this system.
Yep, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye then.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.